secret now. I see dead people.
Welcome to Blondes and Booze. You are about to embark on a journey, one that often leads to more questions than answers. But fear not, your host, Krista, Aaron, and Brandy have the experience, the perseverance, and yes, even the gifts to pull back the veil and allow us to glimpse the other side. They will share not only their experiences, but will introduce you to world-renowned researchers and experiencers to help you find answers in the murky waters of what we call the paranormal. Their bonds with each other reach far beyond friendship, resulting in a pull-no-punches approach to the many subjects they explore. Their goal? To open eyes, hearts, and even minds to what lies on the other side, and the answers residing there.
It helps if I add us to the stage, right? Wow.
I thought, oh my gosh, she forgot me.
No, I forgot me too. It was both of us. It's been a long day. My bad, but I'm sorry about that. How are you?
I'm good. Feeling spooky. Look at my coffee cup.
Oh, that's a cool mug.
Feeling a little spooky.
I can tell. I can definitely tell. I haven't even put up Halloween decorations yet, and I'm usually way on top of that. So I doubt it's going to happen at this point.
Oh my gosh, my youngest daughter had it done like 2 weeks ago. We were ready 2 weeks ago. I was like, whoa, okay.
I just haven't been in the mood, so I haven't done it. So anyway, it's just I don't know. It's not like me for sure.
Right. You know, because Halloween is our favorite time, and
right.
So, but you know me, I've got my stuff.
You sure do.
I got lots more stuff. I'll probably just change it out.
There you go. Well, what's the next holiday? What, Thanksgiving?
Thanks.
There you go. So put a turkey back there and call it good.
I'll put a big turkey back there, call it good.
Right. I hear you. Well, we welcome everybody and we thank everybody for coming. We have a good show tonight. Small Town Monster Seth Breedlove is backstage and waiting to come up. So, Brandy, why don't you tell everybody what to watch this week, and then we'll just bring them up and get going.
Absolutely. On Mondays at 8 p.m. Central, of course, it's Texas Front Porch with me and Tex. Our list got short, people. Our list got real short. On Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central, we have Beyond BMR with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, and his co-host is Tex. On Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central is Danielle Diva with the Diva Dimension. On Thursday at 12 p.m. Central, it is Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob and his lovely co-host Krista. Thursday evening, of course, it's us with Blondes and the Booze. On Friday at 8 p.m. Central. If you can't get enough of us on Thursdays, you can get a little more on Friday with Blondes, Booze, and the Woo. On Saturday at 2 p.m. Central, Tex and Danielle Diva released their newest episode of Infamous Minds. Don't forget to check out Donnie Cho. And just wanted to mention this Saturday night, Texas Front Porch crew is invading Midwest Night Watchers. That is at 7 p.m. Central, so make sure you check that out. And that's all I have for this week.
There you go. You're on a roll. I'm going to go ahead and bring Seth up. Hello.
Well, hello.
Hey there. Hello.
We get to see you for a brief second.
Yeah, I feel horrifically less fun than you guys. I just have this white backdrop. I'm sitting at my kitchen table.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. I'm at my kitchen table too, believe it or not.
Yeah. I'm less spooky though than you guys.
Well, it's Halloween, so
Well, yeah, and behind Krista, I mean, you really can't see it right now. Maybe you can a little bit, but Krista, tell them what's behind you.
So behind me, I do have a couple of pictures of Barton Nunley that he drew. One is the Beast of the LBL, and the other one is a Bigfoot, but I don't remember which one it was. And then I also have a shelf of death up there in the china cabinet. It's everybody who has been close, like it's their funeral cards. I've got 2 dogs cremated up there. So yeah, so it's my shelf of death.
She's spooky all year round.
Yeah. I have an urn somewhere in here with a cat's ashes, but that's it. I don't have the cool. Yeah.
There you go.
I should have brought that in and just set it behind me somewhere.
There you go.
Something.
Yeah. So if
Threw a bat on the wall,
and I go to your funeral, your memorial, or something like that, you're going to end up on the shelf of death with your little card. That's friends, family, everybody's up there.
You're going to be on the shelf, okay?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we thank you for coming. We're, like I told you backstage, Brandy and I are huge fans. And, I faithfully, like you guys put something out every Sunday. I watch it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Most definitely.
Yeah, because we actually got to meet you in Gatlinburg.
Yeah.
Briefly and stuff. And I could tell Chris is a big fan because she kind of stutters a lot when she meets someone. She's like,
Well, you had come over, I believe it was to talk to Barton or something. And I'm like,
I think it was Barton and Martin were over there. So,
yeah. And so I was like, hey, can we get your picture? So,
yeah. Usually people run the opposite direction when I show up. So I appreciated it.
Yeah, well, we still got your picture. And unfortunately, I don't know why, but we should have had that, Krista. Because normally we, anytime we have a guest on that we've had pictures with, we usually just flick them up on the screen and go, haha.
Actually,
we always do the selfie thing. Everybody's like, oh, we'll take your picture. No, it's a selfie.
Yeah.
Was that your first time at Smoky Mountain, or had you been there?
At that one it is. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a fun event.
It was fun.
Yes.
We had a great time. And it was I met a lot of good people and a lot of different things, a lot of different type of things, Adam Davies, he's a good friend of ours also. So that was a bonus. We got to hang out with him a little bit. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Adam's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. So what got you into monsters in general?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had just the boringest answer, which is just that I worked a medical billing job and I had too much time on my hand to listen to podcasts. And so that's technically what got me to the point of like making movies about it, because I had been sort of somewhat interested before that, mostly driven by a series of Bigfoot sightings that happened outside of the town that I grew up in when I was a kid. I grew up in this small town in Ohio called Bolivar. And right outside of Bolivar is this maybe like 5 minutes south of Bolivar is a town called Strasburg. Strasburg on Don Keating's map is the northernmost tip of the Sasquatch Triangle. So that's Don had noticed this pattern of sightings in Ohio during his time researching it in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And he had mapped out this triangle that I don't remember what the other 2 tips of it are, but I know that Strasburg was sort of the northernmost tip. And these sightings right outside of Bolivar were right on the edge of that triangle. And I thought that was interesting. I came into all of this very probably too open-minded, if that makes sense. I just kind of automatically bought into everything, and then slowly became more and more skeptical the longer I was in it. But not that I'm a skeptic by any stretch of the imagination, but I had a very open mind when I first got into it. But I mean, the short answer is I was just really bored, and there's something really special about sitting at a desk job and listening to people talk about things going on out in the real world, out in the forests and the rural heartlands of America that really spoke to me when I was doing those desk jobs. And so that's what drove me further into the topic. It's just in basically the podcast that sort of drew me in.
Yeah.
Well, how big is the triangle that you're talking about?
It's good question. I'd say a couple 100 square miles. Because Strasbourg is maybe 30 minutes from Coshocton, probably 20 miles, but there's a lot of ground in there that covers. And it also includes Salt Fork State Park, which is like in Ohio, that's what a lot of people consider the Bigfoot Mecca of Ohio. It's a state park where they do the Ohio Bigfoot Conference every year there. And then they also do, there were a couple episodes of Finding Bigfoot that were filmed down that way. So it's a good chunk of land, and it is very, very rural, especially that Coshocton area, Salt Fork, not a lot of people, dense, extremely dense undergrowth. In some places almost you can't traverse it. It's so dense. And a lot of water. So it's kind of like, habitat wise, it's sort of a perfect triangle as opposed to a perfect circle. Right.
Wow. Well, very cool. Do you get to investigate it very often, that area?
I don't actually. I grew up in Bolivar and I only live about 20 minutes from there now, but I don't get down that way much. A lot of my work would have been out in Minerva, Ohio, where the Minerva monster was in the 70s. And that's where I had my sighting 2 years ago. But that's not, I don't believe Minerva counts as part of the triangle. In fact, it's an odd, when you really look at that part of the state, there are a ton of sightings out of the Minerva area, Carrollton, Carroll County, that whole part of Ohio. But if you look at it on a map, it doesn't, or satellite images, whatever, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's very, very much farmland that has pockets of forest. So it doesn't look like, when you look at it, it doesn't make a lot of sense for these things to be hanging out there. But I also feel like if they're ever going to be proven to exist, it's going to happen in a place like that, because they're kind of trapped. They're kind of like, they're in these tiny little pockets of habitat, as I see it anyway. That's why when we had a cabin, a hunting cabin on private property we were staying at down in Minerva, and we were making a series called the Bigfoot Project down there. And I always felt like if there was a key, like prime location for these things to be found and then proven to exist, it would have been there, because it was not dense forest. And they were the creatures that were there were strangely okay with like letting us know they were around. We never, I had a sighting, we had numerous rock throws and wood knocks and stuff like that. But I always felt like that was going to be the place where it happened. And then of course, they started clear cutting a neighboring property and all activity died. And now there's no property, or there's no activity going on down on the property. So we think they moved on to another location where there was actually a decent chunk of forest, because there are larger pockets of forest near the property we were at. So we think they probably moved over to those places.
Wow. I watched that, and I seen when you saw the Bigfoot sighting, it was like up on the hill, correct?
Yeah, it was crossing. There's a pipeline that goes through the property. And it was crossing from the left side of the pipeline over to the right. And I only saw it for less than a second, I think. I saw it just as it was going into the woods. And it was broad daylight on a very clear sunny day, 2:00 in the afternoon. And, what I saw was like dark brown, but I don't think it was very big. I think it was like 6 foot tall, somewhere around there. Yeah. And, but you could see its arm pumping while it was running. That was like the thing that stood out to me in the moment, was this arm on the, I don't know why that is, but that was like the thing that my brain latched onto, was this arm moving, you know, like you do when you're running. And I could see the muscle in the arm, despite I could see the muscle move in the arm, despite the fact that this thing was covered in very thick, I would say fur. You know, I've always heard hair, like long stringy hair. This just to me looked like thick fur. So it was kind of odd, but yeah, it was, and it's one of those things too. For one thing, I'm on a ATV when this happens, that's doing about 20 miles an hour, and it's broad daylight. The last thing I think I'm going to see at that time is a Bigfoot running across a clear cut, but that's the way it happened. And it threw me. I was filming at the time, and the camera was pointed in the general direction of the hill. When I go back into the footage, we were on this ATV doing like 20 on, so we're bouncing around. So the footage is your typical Bigfoot guy catches footage. It's shaking around, and there's nothing to be seen other than a brown blur moving into the woods. And so there's not, if I never put it out there, because it's one of those things where it's like, if I put that out there, everyone's going to they're gonna accuse me of hoaxing, or it's gonna be like I'm reading something into this that isn't there. I don't know if I have anything on camera. Maybe I wasn't pointing the camera at the right thing at the right place at the right time. But I just saw it cross that tree line, and that there is a like a speck on the screen right about where this thing would have been going into the tree line.
Wow. What was going through your head?
Nothing, because there's nothing was going through my head, because I jumped out of the car. I jumped out of the ATV to go on 20 while yelling stop, which made no sense. And then I hit the ground, and we were on a decline to begin with. So we're kind of like at an angle driving, like this way across this hill. And so I jumped out of the ATV and hit the ground running, because I was going to try to just run toward the thing. Maybe 150 yards away, maybe 100 yards away, somewhere around there. And then when the problem is that, it's Ohio, so that pipeline is just full of undergrowth and brush, including some really crazy thick thorns and stuff like that. So when I hit that, I couldn't go any further. They had circled around in the ATV and come back, because I was riding passenger. And when we were standing there with me having like a complete mental breakdown for a minute, there was definitely noise up on the hill where this thing had gone into the trees. So I think it stuck around for a minute to see what we were doing. But I mean, it was, it's September here in Ohio, so it's not fall, so it's thick. Everything's still thick. The leaf canopy is still real thick. We couldn't see anything up there. But the night before, we had probably 20 wood knocks go off around us. We had something throw a rock right by us on a trail. We think multiple came down and sort of surrounded us on this trail. And then the creepiest part of it was Heather and I both had our kids out at the hunting cabin. So at the time he was 4, my 4-year-old and then 2 of her kids were in the cabin watching their iPad. And the property owner, Corey, he was staying at the cabin to make sure that nothing happened to the, like no one came up on the kids or whatever. We didn't want to leave the kids there. So something walked up behind the cabin right to the window where the kids were, and he heard it come up, approach the cabin. He started yelling for it, so to try to scare it off. But when I asked him, he told me it was definitely bipedal, whatever it was. It walked 2 feet right to the window behind the house. Yeah.
Michelle N says the bones in the tree were weird. I remember that. I saw that too.
Yeah, that was toward the end of everything. And I still don't know what to make of that. What I can tell you is that there aren't people on that property other than the landowner.
Mhm.
And the fact that there were bones over on that part of the property doesn't make a lot of sense either, unless they were drugged there by coyote,
Mhm.
which there are tons of coyote
Right.
Yeah.
there, like a whole lot of them. So it was odd, and it was just kind of like, so whatever. I think what they're referencing specifically is probably the pelvis that was just hanging in the tree,
Mhm.
which had just been placed there with like there was a limb that was jutting off the tree, and it had just been like kind of hung over this branch.
Mhm.
Now we noticed this in February. I don't know when it was actually placed there. It might have been placed there months before. It could have been placed there a week before. When we tried to take it off the tree, it was kind of frozen onto it. So it had been there for a little while.
Mhm.
But then we started finding other bones around that spot. Now there is a spot. There's another place, maybe a quarter mile from there on the same property that we call the boneyard. And that is where a neighboring farmer is dumping the dead bodies of like cows and other
Right.
livestock.
Yeah.
And so but that's a pretty good haul from where we
Mhm.
were. And it's also up and down numerous hills. So it wouldn't make us, and through woods. So a coyote dragging a pelvis there wouldn't make a ton of sense. Also,
Right.
it have to be a pretty strong coyote.
Mhm.
It's a cow pelvis, so it's a very good size. It's a good size
Right.
pelvis.
Huge.
So it was weird. I don't know what to make of it. I don't. A lot of what went on there, I don't know what to make of. I don't.
Mhm.
There were instances toward the end of our time going there where we were seeing strange lights in the woods. I get asked about that a lot. Like, do you see a connection between orbs and Bigfoot? I don't, like, personally, I don't connect the two.
Mhm.
But that was something that happened there. We had the strange hum that happened the one night. I woke up at like 2:00 in the morning, and there was this electrical hum that was so loud it was shaking the windows of the cabin.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of people have asked if that was the power lines, because there's power
Mhm.
lines, sizable power lines that go through the property. But in the video you can hear the hum, and it's
Mhm.
I grew up near power lines too, in Bolivar, and in fact, like, they ran through the field behind my parents' house, so I'm familiar
Yeah.
with what power lines sound like when they're wet.
Mhm.
This was not that. This was so loud that the windows on the cabin, the glass windows, were shaking. So that
Wow.
was another odd thing that happened there. Les Odell was with us down there
Mhm.
one weekend and saw what he thought was like a red light in a tree.
Wow.
So there was a lot of stuff that happened over the course of basically between September and November of
Mhm.
2021. That is the activity that I can just flat out state it was unexplainable. There was a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
We shot episodes after that, but there was less activity.
Mhm.
And that would include like finding the pelvis in the tree. It's just stuff
Gotcha.
that's weird, but not
Mhm.
really, maybe it isn't weird. Maybe it's
Yeah.
maybe we can find
Yeah.
a perfectly rational reason why that stuff happened.
Mhm. After it's only been a month now, but Brandy and I are no more believers. We are knowers now. We actually had a Bigfoot encounter about a month ago,
Oh,
and
wow.
I saw the shadow of it, and she actually saw it.
Mhm.
So we are definitely knowers now. So it's changed everything, the way we think and But what we saw was like on the flesh and blood side, we didn't see any orbs or anything like that going on. However, back up to January, we were at Land Between the Lakes with Barton and Martin Groves and all of them, and we did see orbs throughout the evening. It was almost all evening, different colors, different sizes, and it wasn't just one person would see it. It was several of us would see them in different areas. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And then the one that I happened to see at the LBL was the size of probably a beach ball. So it was just weird.
But
We experienced.
that
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, but that place it's got a lot of history to it. And
Yeah.
I believe that some of that could be also paranormal.
Right.
That it's not related to anything cryptid at all.
Right.
So
Yeah, we'll be there
There's that.
in less than 3 weeks. We're making a movie down there in about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've experienced the orb thing now two times that come to mind. One was in Minerva, and then the biggest was on the Chestnut Ridge here in Pennsylvania. And the one in Pennsylvania was pretty over the top. Like it was it was an incident that was defied explanation because there were so many people there that witnessed it, and very, very unusual. The way they behaved was very unusual, just very, very odd. We saw there was an orb there were multiple orbs that moved into this, like, I call them mystery lights just because orb immediately makes it sound like I'm connecting these things to the paranormal. I don't know what these lights are. Like, for all I know, they might be, it might be a natural phenomenon. We just have no idea what's causing it. But there was two white lights and then two red, and they moved in a pattern to the point that some of our crew thought it was a truck pulling into the woods, which would have made sense, except we were in the middle of nowhere and there was no truck. Like they walked right up to where they were and there was nothing there. We captured one on camera that was super interesting. It appeared on the trail between us and another group. We thought it was their headlamp and instructed everyone in the other group to turn headlamps off. They turned headlamps off. You could still see the light between us and them. So rather than stand and stare at it, I was like, I'm going to sort of jog toward it. So I took my camera and just jogged about, 200 yards maybe down this road, this gravel road toward it. And super interesting. When I got to where it was, the light went out. Maybe 30, 40 feet before I got to it, it just disappeared. The group behind us that we had left could still see the light. So when we were standing where it was, they were seeing our silhouettes. They could still see our silhouette, but the light was no longer there for me. But they were still looking at it. So I've only really experienced it twice that I'm aware of, or that I can recall right now. Just definitely odd.
Yeah, that's the same way with us. Like Brandy said, the LBL, there's not only, reports of Bigfoot and Dogman, but paranormal. There's 233 cemeteries there, and Brandy and I have encountered, on the paranormal side of things there at the LBL. So like she said, we can't say that it was, a cryptid type related or if it was, paranormal,
or if it was just its own energy manifestation.
Do you guys live near there?
I'm we're only within 2.5, 3 hours from there.
And was your sighting? So your sighting was in LBL?
Our sighting was not. No, it was in southern.
It's here in Missouri. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're at in Missouri.
It was
the Ozarks.
Yeah, in the Ozarks near Springfield, Missouri.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, it was literally in the middle of nowhere, and it was a camp out that we were doing, and it was part of the Ozark Mountain Sasquatch conference is what it was. And that evening, everybody went back there, and we had a bad storm go through, and I heard it come up behind my tent, and then I seen the shadow, and then Brandy was sleeping in her car. And she actually saw it. So she had a better look. I only had the shadow. So
I wasn't like you. I wasn't going to jump out of my car and go surprise or stop or no. I just okay, I'm not moving. I am not moving. I am not moving.
And what was really cool is that we were with two other really great investigators, in our opinion, researchers, Shane Carpenter and Randy Harrington. And they didn't just take us for our word. Like they literally, track this. And we have there's 14-inch impressions all behind our tent, and that went through half of our camp, and it was crazy. So I mean, the evidence was there to back up what we had saw. So that was really cool. That was really cool, where you could, compare it. So anyway, we are now knowers.
That's awesome.
We are now knowers.
Yeah.
So you're ahead of me then, because I still can't refer to myself as a knower. And in fact, I find that the further I get away from the incident, the more I question what I saw. And I think that's common. Like when I talk to witnesses, they very often tell me the same thing. It's also that thing where you tell people the story and you see how they react to it. And then it's like, maybe I am nuts. Like maybe like I remember on July 4th, I had a friend over here that I don't hang out with very often. And he's not really into this stuff. He's just a buddy that I know through church or whatever. Sure. And he was over here, and when we left, I said, we got to talk. He was getting ready to leave, and we're standing in the driveway, and I said something about, well, I saw one a couple of years ago, so that kind of like changed my outlook on the thing. And he's like, how did he put it? It was insulting without being purposefully insulting. Like he didn't mean to be insulting, but it was like, it was like that thing where it's like, I mean, do you really know what you saw though? And then it's like, well, maybe I don't. Like maybe. So I find that I say I'm at like 98, 99%, which doesn't make a lot of sense for someone who actually saw it. But until you've actually seen one, I don't know. Also, like my sighting was so fleeting. I don't know how long yours lasted, but I'm assuming it was more than 1 second.
Yes.
And so I think if your brain has time to adjust to what it's encountering to some degree in the moment, it will probably change that side of it. You're probably going to be less willing to write it off after the fact, but mine was so fleeting. And there's also the thing that bothers me about it, which is that, I'm a huge fan of like the elders of Bigfoot, like John Green and Renee DeHinden and these guys. And those guys, especially the four horsemen, that especially Green and DeHinden, and they didn't have their own sighting. They never had a sighting. So like, who am I to come along and then have a sighting that happens to, overlap with the location of my first movie? Like, what are the odds? So I find that as time goes on, I actually question it far more. And to some degree, I think I am kind of like consciously or subconsciously trying to excuse it, like come up with a way to write it off. I'm not doing it on purpose, but it is like, it's something. The thing that bothers me about my sighting is that I was in a moving vehicle, and I think there's things that can happen visually that could throw. Maybe I was looking at something in the foreground. I thought it was like something in the background, and like my brain read it in a different way or whatever. I'm not saying that I don't think I had a sighting. I did. It's just like your brain does some interesting things after the fact.
Yeah.
And that's
and the adrenaline too, I'm sure you had quite an adrenaline rush. That's what, we had. It was like the craziest thing we ever seen. So it just, just with all those things together,
Yeah,
it was also like, what are the odds that I'm out here shooting a Bigfoot thing and then you actually have something happen?
Right.
It's usually if you have cameras, like the interesting thing is, whenever I would do podcasts or interviews in general, people are always like, well, what's the craziest thing that ever happened to you? Well, until like 2 years ago, nothing. Like I had no stories to tell. We smelled something in the woods in Fouke back in 2016. Like that was the kind of stuff I was saying. And then we had that happen. And then we had the orb incident on the Chestnut Ridge happen a few months later. So it was like, all of a sudden it was like, well, now I've had two kind of odd occurrences in the woods.
Right.
So I don't know.
Right. They're definitely out there. That's what, when we were given dropping hints, we actually did a show on it. We were dropping hints, and all I would say is Bigfoot is real, because
Bigfoot's real. It ended up, we measured it out, and it was almost 20 feet away from where I was sitting.
Oh, wow.
And That was close.
Were you able to
really...
estimate like how big it was or anything?
Yes. Yeah. Well, see, what made it easy is because this thing was about 6.5 to 7 feet tall. I'm thinking more 6.5. And they're like, well, how would you know? I said, well, I have a brother who's 6.5 feet tall, you know, so I've been looking at him pretty much my whole life. I can pretty much gauge 6.5 feet. That's pretty simple. So they measured it out. Sure enough, 6.5 feet.
And it was standing by the tent too. So
it was standing behind the tent on the corner.
Yeah.
And it was swaying back and forth, like looking around the tent. Because of the rain and everything, there was like a little bit of condensation on my window because I'd only been sleeping for like 20 minutes. It wasn't long at all. And when I woke up and was groggy, it took me quite a bit to figure out what I was looking at.
Yeah.
You know, because are you thinking, is this a person? Well, heck no, that thing is huge. It's not a person. And then I'm thinking, okay, it's a bear. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, no, that is not a bear by any means. So I got about 45 seconds of going back and forth in my head of what I'm looking at. Because of the condensation, I can't give you detailed, you know, but I can tell you that I know that its chest was very wide. You know, it didn't look human at all. And it's like, I was so kind of disappointed afterwards because, you know, when you see a Sasquatch, you know, you want to see its feet. Yeah. Just like, I want to see its feet. That's what everybody talks about, the feet. And the way it was standing, I couldn't see the feet. I was disappointed in that. But, you know, I think it was standing there in confusion because it could hear Krista and another person in a tent, and they were talking quietly because this thing was around the tent. My car is parked in between, you know, our tent and somebody else's tent. And because it had rained so much, all I had was a mattress. I wasn't sleeping on a wet floor. So I decided to sleep in the car, but I was right in between the two tents, and it was standing behind the tent that was next to us. Yeah. And I'm just watching it, you know, and then I'm thinking maybe it's looking at me. You know,
and then something about that too, that I've heard from other people. Obviously, I don't have a ton of insight here outside of talking to people, but I have heard that they have a hard time tracking like 2 points of interest. So you're talking about a tent with people actually in it moving and talking. You're in a vehicle. It's probably focused on that tent at that moment, which is why.
And we weren't talking loud, but we were not whispering. You know, it was just kind of a low talk.
Like the normal talk we would have if everybody was sleeping. You know, you're not whispering, but you're just talking low.
Right.
But you know, and at that moment, I couldn't think of anything to do but to curl back up into a small ball, because you realize at that moment how you are not safe in your car. I don't care what anybody says. It's a false sense of security being in your car, because the sheer size of this thing could have ripped me out of my car in a heartbeat before anybody could have got out of their tent. I'd have been gone. You know, if that's what it wanted. But I don't believe that's what it wanted. It was just checking everything out. You know, it was just seeing where everybody was, listening to everything that was going on. And because of the storm, you know, and it made everything all wet and everything. So it had the confidence to come in quietly. So I believe that's why it chose then. You know, I think it'd been watching us for days. But it finally decided to come in after this big rain. And because everything wasn't crunchy anymore, because everything was just kind of crunchy from it being so hot. And I believe it just took that time. Plus, you know, we did have a big storm, which blew our mess tent everywhere and crumpled it. There was tents laying. I mean, it was just a really bad freak storm, because we were supposed to go out for a hike that night, and we were going to go up, you know, on the ridges and everything and take a look, but we ended up not going because of the storm. So I don't know. There's probably a whole lot of reasons, but I think they were just curious about what we were doing.
Yeah, what you guys are doing right now, I don't think you'll stop doing. Like
No.
you try to kind of talk yourself through the events over and over again, and then you try to make sense of like what happened and what they were doing and why they were there and what you were doing and why didn't I do this? Why didn't I? So yeah, it's only going to get more extreme probably as you get further away from the event.
Yeah.
It is. We're already planning our next adventure. We're like, oh gosh, okay. When are we going again? Of course, the LBL is close to us, and
Right.
we want to get back out there. We haven't been out there since late spring, and so we're like, oh man, it's kind of like you're feeling the withdrawal. Like you want to go, you want to find out more, you want to see more.
Right.
So we plan on making a trip out there real soon again, but it's not that far for us. I mean, Chris and I, if we really wanted to, we could travel up in the morning, stay the night and come back really easily. It's really not a big deal.
Yeah. Have you been to the LBL? I know you said you have plans to go, but have you been there yet?
Yeah. We actually filmed there back in I think it was 2022. It might have been 2021. We shot American Werewolves there with that. That's actually how I got to know Martin.
Yeah. Martin's our friend.
Yeah.
We love Martin.
Yeah, Martin's
Hi,
great.
Martin. He's out there.
Yeah. So it's an odd place. I've said this before, but there's only a couple places I've been to where you get and I usually bristle at this kind of thing, but you get a weird vibe there. Like I remember when everyone kept telling me about Point Pleasant. West Virginia. It was like, when you get there, you're going to get a real weird, it's real weird. And I got there and I was like, this place is peaceful as can be. Like, I love going to Point Pleasant. It's a very peaceful environment for me. You sit on the banks of the river. Yeah. It's like this sweet little town in West Virginia. I love West Virginia. LBL is different though. There's an odd kind of like something hanging over the whole place that I can't quite explain. Of course, I was only there. I think we were only there about 4 days the first time we went, and the weather was really weird, like super overcast the whole time. Really like eerily red and pink skies at night, like almost like supernatural looking.
Yeah.
But definitely, and going into the forest is odd as well. But I'm looking forward to going back. We're not going to be there much longer, actually, for this next trip. But I'm looking forward to going back just because I kind of want to get more of the dirt on the area. There's so much about LBL that has kind of been that's kind of just folklore. Yeah, I want to know more about the reality of the place and what's going on there. Definitely, like in terms of habitat and stuff, it seems perfect for something like a Bigfoot. But there's so much of the lore of the place has kind of been built on by, various people, and it's hard to figure out what the truth of what's gone on there is, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you just know the basic history, like the town of Birmingham that was flooded out to make the lakes and blah blah blah. I mean, you have all that. But all these people that had to move because of everything.
Homesteads. People had been there for years. It was their homestead.
Anytime that happens, it leaves behind something. I don't know if it's anything beyond our own sort of like combined memory of what once existed there. Like in terms of people's homes, or if that just kind of like seeps into the fabric of what we know about the place. There's here in Ohio, we have Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Same thing happened there. There were people that were run out of their homes. The government bought homes and then literally torched the homes while people were still moving out. In North Carolina, my family is from Bryson City, North Carolina. So my dad's side of the family is from Bryson City, North Carolina. So deep woods, as deep woods, North Carolina as you can get. And there's a town there that they did the same thing. They ran people out of their homes and then flooded this valley and made a dam. And today that area is just rife with like paranormal encounters and sightings and all sorts of stuff. So I think there is a part of that is influenced by our collective memory of what once existed in some of these places. Like I'm not trying to get woo or anything. I'm just saying, like, I think there is an aspect of that
Sure.
you have to take into account with some of these locations. LBL is one of those, because I mean, some of the people that still live in that area are pissed. Like, they're pissed that the stuff that has gone on with that park has gone on. So it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. I got to ask though, are you guys tenting it in a tent at the LBL, or are you doing cabin or?
Alexander is doing at least a couple episodes of Beyond the Trail. While we're there, we're taking the whole crew. So Eli will be there. So all
cool.
Basically everyone that makes stuff will be there. Alex is doing Beyond the Trail. Eli is doing a 3 or 4 episode Sasquatch on Earth series that will be shot there. And then I'll be there filming the follow-up to Dogman Triangle, which is called Dogman Territory. And so I will be in an Airbnb along with everyone else, because when we're filming a full-on movie like this, the need to like transfer footage and that kind of thing is something that you kind of require a decent residence. Also, just, you know, when you have like 7 people in a crew staying in it's hard to just put everyone in a tent and be like, don't shower for 4 days. So we'll be in an Airbnb, except for Alex. I know Alex is tenting.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right.
He's a brave man if he's staying by himself out there at the LBL. Right.
Well, I know the Hellbent people will be with him. And then he'll probably be talking to Barton and some of those guys too. So at least that's hope.
Good deal. Good deal. Yep.
Yeah, because we were laughing because I ended up in what was that? The Bigfoot news or whatever it's called. I forget right now.
Times.
The Bigfoot Times. Anyway, so I ended up in that, but it's got my picture on the front page. Now, this is 3 days after, just 3 days of being in the woods, and I'm looking a horrible mess. So I can understand if you're trying to film and look halfway decent, you can't be out there without any, I don't know, water.
Yeah.
You need some water. Deodorant won't cut it after a day or two, you know, it just doesn't.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. We're getting close to the break, so we can continue talking what we're doing. But when we do come back from the break, I want to switch it over to Dogman. What made you guys branch out onto the Dogman side of things?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
as long as I'm aware of it too, just because I know he was in the chat. I did want to say that I hope everything's going well with Martin. I know Heather with STM has had a chance to talk to him. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. So, you know, like we legit were praying and thinking about him while he was in the hospital.
Us too. He was sick. He was really sick. And he is better because he is going to the Tennessee Wildman Conference this weekend.
Cool.
So,
well,
yeah.
So
I just wanted to say that we are constantly thinking about you, Martin.
Yes, most definitely. There's a couple questions and maybe we have time to answer them really quick. When you were talking about where your Bigfoot encounter was, Glenn Dannison asked, is there any weird cult activity in that area?
Not that I can think of. You know, I mean, the cult activity thing is like a lot of that is chalked up to folklore. It does happen. I know when Alex and Eli were filming on the West Coast, they ran into like some sort of cult up in the PNW. They were up near Bluff Creek and encountered like some sort of cult in the woods, and it was super unsettling. But no, not that I'm aware of near the property I'm talking about. Now there are rumored Native American burial mounds on the property.
Okay.
So there are supposedly spots where Native Americans were buried, possibly even literally on the property we were on. So that's an interesting note, which frankly, if it was a Dogman thing, I'd probably be more intrigued by that, because I've noticed a direct correlation between indigenous burial mounds or burial spots and Dogman sightings. Gotcha. But no, nothing that I'm aware of in terms of cult activity.
Good deal. Good deal. All right. Next question for you. Michelle N asks, how and what makes you decide which place or monster makes the cut for small town monsters?
Oh, it's not a monster thing so much as the people involved.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as interested in the creatures we cover as I am in the human beings involved in the story.
Sure.
You guys sitting here and telling me your story is more interesting to me than just hearing random talk about Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
And I know other Bigfooters who are the opposite. Like I know Cliff Barrickman's very interested in like hearing about Bigfoot and how they might live and that kind of thing. And I get that, but that is not where my interests lie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm much more I'm much more prone to listen to folks like yourselves talk about what happened to you and how it played out and how it's affected you. That's what interests me. I also don't speak for Alex and Eli. Like if we're specifically talking about the YouTube channel, that's totally different. On the movies, I kind of direct the flow of the feature films that we do. I can kind of be the guy that's saying, this is what we're going to make next. On YouTube, it's kind of a collaboration, between Eli and myself and Alex. And so whatever they want to do, theirs is totally in their court. But for me, it's always the human. It's always going to be the human element that drives me. And by the way, the perfect example of that is American Werewolves. And the fact that so many of the stories in that movie are just someone telling what happened to them. None, like even though there are like recreations and that kind of thing in that movie, if you watch the movie and you watch the accounts, I pull that stuff back when someone's telling an account. I'm driven by what happened to people like Martin, more so than simply speculating on Bigfoot or Dogman activity or that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're at 52 minutes. Let's go ahead and take a break.
Okay. We'll take our 5-minute break. And if everybody would stick with us, we'll be back in 5 minutes.
shorter than you think. No think.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around with us. And Seth, don't kill me, but I found the picture from
Oh, good.
Gatlinburg.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear.
I'm going to show it. I'm going to show it. Here it is.
There we are. Yay.
It's not awful. It's not awful.
It's not awful. It's not awful.
I've been in worse. My beard was shorter then.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Yeah. So
You must be getting ready for winter.
I don't know if I'm keeping this. I probably won't. I feel like it adds 10 years. So I'll probably exit.
But to keep you warmer, like
Yeah. Like a
just
bear.
saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
that.
Yep, absolutely. Let's talk Dogman. How'd you go from Bigfoot to Dogman?
Yeah. How do you go? Yeah. How do you do that? Bigfoot to Dogman. Now I know how I got into it, and that's Krista's fault. But
Well, I mean, as a company, we made a leap in 2016 because we went from 2016 with nothing but, I mean, at that point we had made 3 Bigfoot movies to 2017. We made our 2 movies were The Mothman of Point Pleasant and Invasion on Chestnut Ridge. And Invasion was the first movie we made that looked into the Dogman topic in some capacity. I don't know what it is specifically about the Dogman subject that I'm intrigued by, but I find that with every project, there's something I latch onto that kind of like pulls me further into the whole thing. So we started our first full feature length Dogman movie was The Beast of Bray Road, or The Bray Road Beast. I can tell you on that movie, the thing that drew me into that was Linda Godfrey.
Yep.
Just working with her and having the chance to spend time with her. She was such a rational, level-headed person who had a very level-headed approach to extremely skeptical approach to the subject when she first got into it. And she came from a journalism background, which my education isn't in journalism, but I was writing for newspapers around the same time that I made the movie. And so we connected on that level. That's what drew me to the Dogman topic, really, is Linda. And just talking to her and getting her insights on everything. And she, her and I talked in 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2019 at the Cryptid Con in Kentucky. And there were other projects we wanted to do together. Yeah. Linda's the reason I'm into it, I guess. End of the day. Yeah. I would have no interest at all if it wasn't for Linda. Even with stuff like Aaron Deese's Dogman Triangle book and things like that. Linda's the reason I gained an interest in it at all. And and like I said, all of my roots in this stuff come down to the people. And Linda was an easy person to get along with for me. And I'm not the most social guy. She was an easy person for me to get along with, and someone who we spoke through email a lot. And we had other projects we wanted to hit down the road. So it's disappointing that she's gone, but she was the reason. She's the reason I'm into it.
She's truly a legend. Absolutely. Absolutely. How did you experience anything, with?
No. When we were okay, so the only thing I remember about Bray Road that was kind of odd was I grew up in farm country in Ohio, so I'm very familiar with deer. Like extreme, like even today, like a deer dives in front of your car. If you're driving at night, you're probably going to see a deer. We were driving down Bray Road late at night, like 11 o'clock at night, heading back to our Airbnb on Bray Road, and something large and somewhere between brown and silver, if that makes any sense, dove between. So we had two cars. We were in one car, and then there's another car in front of us. All crew. We're all following. I'm following them, and something dove across the street between our cars while driving down Bray Road. We pulled to the side immediately and got out. The only thing we found was deer tracks in the field. I'm assuming it was a deer, but it was such a weird incident because you're obviously going to be keenly aware of where you are.
Sure.
Like, your brain is always going to be like, well, I'm on Bray Road, so be on the lookout. That's the only thing that was odd that happened to us while I've been shooting like a Dogman movie. Dogman Triangle was much more entrenched in like interviewing witnesses, so there was probably much less of a chance of anything odd happening on that shoot. And with Skinwalker, the Howl of the Rougarou, we were shooting down on the coast, which we were all the way down on the ocean, on the Gulf, in Louisiana. And the whole point of that movie was how much the coastline there has changed to where it is today, where there's no habitat down there for anything. So we definitely didn't experience anything down there, but not yet. But I'll be back in LBL in 2 to 3 weeks, so we'll see what happens. Well,
I will tell you, last time we were at the LBL, and that was in May, War Criminal, who's in our chat, he was with us, and so was Jonestead Farms. Anna was with us, and Bart and Letitia, and Martin Groves and Gabby and Elijah Henderson were all there. And Brandy and I stayed back at camp, but War Criminal and Gabby and Elijah and the girls all went out, and they kind of split up. So it was odd because Letitia and Anna and Michelle came back all excited. They seen what they described as like a miniature Mothman. That's the only way they could describe it. Excited, on top of the earth. And we were questioning them about what they saw, like checking the boxes. It wasn't a bat. It wasn't, wasn't this, wasn't that. They're like, no, it was, And then 10 minutes later, War Criminal and Gabby and Elijah Henderson pull in. They're on cloud nine. Gabby gets out, and first thing she said to us is, "We saw the beast of the LBL." And it was War Criminal and Gabby that actually saw it together. Elijah didn't see it, but it crossed in front of them. Yeah. So, that I don't know what it was about that night, but the creatures were out. So hopefully, my point being is good luck to you all. If you guys have, that kind of luck going out down there.
Well, you were talking about the animals and things like that earlier with Bigfoot and all. They were talking about that night that they had seen animals, they were everywhere. They were having no fear of anything. They were talking about snakes being all over the road. They must have seen like 20 snakes on the road and just all kinds of animals everywhere. And then they had a sighting. Yeah. That sounds weird.
Yeah. Yeah. It was weird. It was everything. And what was really weird about this too is, so Brandy and I and Martin Groves and Bart and Daryl, I believe, was there. We were all back at camp, and Sheila, Martin's wife, and Martin made a comment about the moon. Brandy, you want to tell that story?
Yeah. because Martin and I were talking back and forth, and he kept saying, look at that moon, look at that moon. But we were talking about it because it was just a full moon. It was just like a creamy, creamy white color. But it was beautiful all in the same. And he just, he kept commenting on it. So I was looking. But when the girls came back and then War Criminal and Elijah and Gabby came back, they were talking about it was like an orangish red moon, but we weren't seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
The moon looked totally different, and they were only a few miles from us when they had saw the moon.
Yeah.
So that was weird for us also. We didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just another weird thing to chalk up to the LBL,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just weird. I don't know. I can't describe it. So
Yeah,
I hope you guys have just as good as luck while you're there.
Yeah.
Seriously.
As long as we make it out getting what I need shot, that is the biggest thing. We're the tough thing about doing Small Town Monsters these days is like we're always doing multiple projects at once, and in this case, we'll be shooting three different projects at once. Beyond the Trail, and then Sasquatch Unearthed, and then the Dogman Territory movie. So we'll see what happens. It's tough, like doing the stuff with this many people and then trying to coordinate with the people who are going to be in the movie. The odds of anything happening at all while you're there are slim to none. But for something like Alex's project, that's a problem. For something like what I'm doing, I'm there to capture the witnesses and the investigators talking, from their experience. So it's less important to me, but I'm hoping for Alex's sake that he captures something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And he just may, I know you're meeting up with the right people there that know the good hot spots. So you should have some good luck. You should definitely have some good luck. What are your opinions on like the paranormal and ghost and that kind of thing?
I don't have many. I haven't spent a lot of time looking into like the ghost side of things. We did a series called On the Trail of Hauntings, actually, but it was mostly like it was very early on in our YouTube phase, and we kind of didn't know how to approach it. And some things about that series I regret being put on film. Thankfully, it hasn't been released too far for the public. There's a few episodes on our YouTube channel, but yeah, I don't know. I have differing opinions on it. So I don't have a dog in the race, or a horse in the race, or however you put it. I'm interested in it, but less interested in the idea that like these are dead people communicating with us from beyond the grave. Like that's actually very boring to me for some reason. I'm interested in alternative theories to that. But I haven't really experienced anything while on a film shoot. But as a kid, my parents owned a historical building in downtown Bolivar that was built in the 1800s that had a history of odd occurrences. And my entire family experienced different things in the building in the 15 to 20 years that we ran our business out of the building they owned. So I'm not closed off to it. I just don't know what I think of it.
Right. Gotcha. So Brandy and we started out on the paranormal level. It was all about ghosts for us. And we kind of have our nick, like Brandy, she goes to all these famous locations and ghost hunts these places. Me, on the other hand, I'm not really into that. I would rather help a homeowner or, a business owner or something with their haunting. So I do more of the private cases, more so, but I'm all about, helping locations like raise money, because they are historical locations. And if, they go under, our history's gone, So we hold, Brandy and we do hold events at different haunted locations, and people pay money, but we don't pocket it. We donate that money back to that location, to use to keep the lights on or, pay taxes or whatever they have to do,
Right.
So for us, paranormal was a thing. And honestly, I got bored, ghosts didn't scare me anymore, and I was always a believer in Bigfoot. And she and we actually did a private case together, and we were sitting out, it was middle of the night on my back porch. And I kind of live out in the country. And I asked her, I said, well, what do you think of Dogman? Do you believe in a Dogman? And that was it. We've been in the cryptids ever
that
since.
was it. Yeah,
well, I
'cause,
think I think there's a lot of overlap between Dogman and ghosts and the paranormal. Whenever you think of the term the word cryptozoology, the last thing I kind of go to lump into that category is Dogman. Dogman to me has a lot of correlations with the paranormal, way more correlations with the paranormal. To me, it's not. I've had discussions with people about this, but that is the topic where I see the most overlap between the supernatural and the paranormal, and a particular topic. Whether it's the fact that you cannot throw a rock without. When it comes to Dogman sightings, without finding a nearby Native American burial mound. Very often people that have Dogman encounters have had some sort of occult connection in their personal past. That's something that I've found multiple times. There's something off. The Dogman topic to me is not a flesh and blood cryptozoological topic. Now, on my own crew, like I know Aaron Deese doesn't think that, but that's my own personal read on it.
Well, I hear what you're saying. Now, I'm originally from Michigan, so I didn't grow up with Dogman per se. It was always werewolf or it was Wolfman. So those two are both on the supernatural side.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying when you're saying that. It's like you just don't know where Dogman fits in. And I get that.
It's also biologically, physically, the idea of a creature that walks around, a canid creature that walks on two legs that is a natural flesh and blood animal makes very little sense. Physically, it doesn't. You talk to witnesses. I've talked to numerous witnesses, by the way. At this point, I've probably interviewed 30 different Dogman witnesses, if not more. What they describe is a dog-like creature or a wolf-like creature that is walking on these small canid hind legs, but upright. Physically, that doesn't work. Like it doesn't. It makes no sense. It'd be like think about how absurd it would be if someone told you about seeing a deer man.
Right.
Like, and it's the same concept. So how is biologically, how does that work? I'd be curious, I'd be curious to know biologically how an animal walks around on these tiny hind legs, and not all fours, just walks around on both legs. And not only that, but can then run at, like, I've talked to numerous witnesses whose cars were paralleled by these things.
Yeah.
On these tiny hind legs. And they all describe the legs in the same way, by the way. This isn't like it's not like I'm making this up. Almost everyone says they had very small legs or thin legs that were bent backwards. That's the way they always put it, which is how a dog would be. I get it. Like that's the way a dog's legs work. But it doesn't, biologically, it does not, to me, make any sense for this to be a natural animal running around on its hind legs through the woods. Linda and I talked a couple times about coy wolves and things like that, like because a lot of what people refer to as Dogman are sightings of abnormally large canids on all fours,
Right.
but they get kind of like lumped into the Dogman subject. I think those are two completely different things. I think we have coy wolves. I think we have all sorts of hybrid, probably coyote and wolf roaming around the woods on all fours, quadrupeds.
Mm-hmm.
That's very different from a 7 foot tall canid creature walking on its hind legs. And so biologically, I have a hard time making that make sense. And
Right.
I mean, it's almost more absurd from a natural animal kingdom standpoint than something like a Mothman. Because Mothman, you can get, you hear the descriptions and people are talking about that. Well, this thing looked like a giant owl, or it's a man-like creature with wings, or something. Like there are things in the animal kingdom that we can connect the Mothman to. The fact that a lot of people think that this is a canid, an upright walking canid that somehow has developed the ability to walk on its hind legs full time on its canid, while also growing to 7 feet tall. The amount of upper body mass to lower body mass, the ratio doesn't work.
Right.
Physically, it doesn't work. So to me, just as someone who's interviewed witnesses and looked into this stuff, I think it's a supernatural paranormal phenomenon. Gotcha. That's where I come down on it right now. Who knows where I'll be in a year?
Right. And there's a quick question here. Raymond asked, what do they say about the front legs, the witnesses? Because I've heard a lot of different things. Yeah, the front legs are interesting because most of the time it is described as, and I can say this because I'm in the middle of editing one of these movies right now. I'm editing American Werewolves 2 as we speak. In fact, I just kind of like put the finishing touches on it today. And the thing I most commonly hear is it's a human-like arm that tapers down to this like human-like hand, but the fingers have claws on the end. So it's not the hind legs are comparable to like what we know as a typical canid, but the upper body seems to be a different bag, a mixed bag. I don't know that I've ever talked to anyone or ever heard a witness describe the arms as being canid-like. Typically, it's a human-like arm that has clawed fingers. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we kept talking about this has been an ongoing thing because honestly, I'm trying to figure out the difference between a wolf man, a werewolf, and a dog man. I'm just trying to figure out the difference because some people say that there are clear differences, and you're talking about how.
Yeah, I don't care. when
I don't want to meet any of them. That's all I'm saying.
No, I don't want to meet them, but also like the discrepancy over a werewolf versus a dog man, I do not care. That is like people get so hung up on dog man versus werewolf, and I think ultimately people are describing probably run-ins with the same kind of thing.
Identification, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it's to some degree, but we're really getting hung up on a descriptive term and nothing more. Like it doesn't. Mm-hmm. It'd be like getting mad that someone refers to a Bigfoot as opposed to like a Sasquatch or a hairy man. Like it's all. I think it's all part of the same ballpark. Mm-hmm. How are you going to get this hung up on the descriptive term for what is ultimately an upright canid? Mm-hmm. Like that's all it's an upright canid.
Right.
But that's not a fun term, and I get it. So also when we title our movies, we title them typically with werewolf in the title if it's a dogman topic, because of the fact that the general public doesn't know what dogman is. Like go talk to someone who has no familiarity with the paranormal and mention the word dogman, and they're probably going to chuckle. That's mostly the reaction I get to it. So I'm very interested in Dogman and werewolf, but I'm not interested in what the discrepancies are between the descriptive terms.
Sure.
Because I think ultimately it's the same. We're describing something comparable, no matter what. Like if you want to say, well, Dogman's directly a member of the animal kingdom, and werewolf is something that is supernatural. Well, my personal opinion is they're both supernatural. Like I don't see either of them as a natural animal, a natural creature that exists within the animal kingdom. So, but that's just my, again, like I don't ultimately have a horse in the race. My interest is the people who've actually seen this stuff. My interest is in the people who document it. The guys like Barton and Martin and you who go out and actually do the work. I'm interested in what drives you and like what keeps you interested in this stuff. I'm not as interested in the hangups that the community gets caught up in over all these different topics. I just kind of lose interest in that stuff.
Yeah. When we had the Bigfoot encounter here a month ago, I was in a tent and everything was zipped up. So it was like one of my senses was taken away. I could hear it, but I couldn't see it until I saw the shadow, with the moonlight. So what was running through my mind is I got creeped out because I'm like, okay, I've heard so many different stories of Dogman and most of the stories have not been good. And then I'm thinking, okay, I'm right in the middle where Ozark Howler is, and then like Gugway pops in my head. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to get 8 here. And then you hear, of just like at the LBL, Hellbent Holler, they found tents and clothing all over there, and I'm thinking, well, here I am in a tent. They're going to come in and so my head was. Did
you hear any sound, by the way, in that incident? Did you guys hear breathing or?
No, I did not.
No.
I heard it.
I heard it walking around.
Yeah, we heard it walking.
Yeah,
but
I heard it walking around.
Breathing, or no there breathing. Wasn't any snorting, or
I had my windows rolled up, so I wouldn't. I don't think I would have heard something as light as it breathing.
Right.
But definitely heard it walking around. It wasn't acting like it was afraid to be there or tiptoeing around. It was just walking through.
Yeah. And what after, so when we heard it walking around our camp there, it had kind of ventured off a little bit. And we heard a whistle. We heard a frog, which was really weird. You just don't hear a frog all the time.
It was really cold.
And then we heard the sound of metal. I can't explain that. It was just weird. So
metal.
Metal.
Yeah. Well, there was
metal as well.
Yeah, there was some metal over in a corner, and we think that possibly it hit it coming into the camp.
Okay.
Hit that I don't even know what it was. It was just a pile of metal over there for I don't know what reason, but I think that they hit that on the way in, and that's and everybody reported hearing that sound because when we were there, we weren't the only ones. There was 8 different people that reported something happening on the same timeline. So, I mean, and like I said, they tracked it and the push trail and all of that. And, it just made its way around camp and all the sounds and everything played into the timeline. So they can pretty much explain most of what happened.
Yeah.
But on my thoughts of Dogman, I wouldn't want that experience. I wouldn't want to be in my car and wake up and see that.
Yeah.
No.
That's very different. No. It's very different. The difference between Bigfoot and Dogman, or a lot of the stuff I look into, there's a distinctive difference, and a lot of people do want to kind of like rope Bigfoot into the paranormal side of things, and I get it because there's a number of sightings that do correlate with paranormal activity, but I've experienced Bigfoot activity, and to me, I'm dealing with a flesh and blood creature, whereas something like the Dogman, the werewolf stuff, it's on a different wavelength.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like it's what each person's encounter is. For us too, we didn't see any weirdness. So, and we heard it walking. So to me, that was flesh and blood, but other people that I know have seen, different things, different aspects of them, and makes theirs a little, woo.
Yeah.
And I don't knock their encounter. I wasn't there to say whether that happened or not. I believe them,
Yeah.
So, and I think that's, a lot of the debate, the flesh and blood compared to the woo, it's just what your encounter is,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Where you guys have been so many places besides Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you what is the place that you just really enjoyed the most? And it doesn't even have to be because of the evidence. Just what place did you really enjoy going to?
Well, that's tough because, and this is going to be a very boring answer, but it's West Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah, I live in Ohio, so West Virginia is a border state, and I grew up traveling a lot. My family, my mom owned a bookstore when we were kids, and we did book shows every weekend from March to November every year. We were on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I've traveled all over the country. Ultimately it's West Virginia. If I any chance I can get to go back to West Virginia, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But we have been a lot of places. I mean, Colorado's great. The Olympic Peninsula in Washington's beautiful.
Yeah.
On the East Coast, I adore the Adirondacks in New York.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's side of the family is from the Smokies, so I love any chance I get to go down to Tennessee or North Carolina. I have a lot of favorites, but West Virginia is ultimately, it's almost heaven.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
So let's touch briefly on Alaska, because you guys have put out a lot of footage on Alaska, and I got to tell you, I look forward to every new one that you guys put out. I mean, just and I tell people, it doesn't matter if you're into Bigfoot or not, watch this just because of the views and the landscape that you guys have filmed. It's incredible.
Yeah, West Virginia or Alaska, sorry. Alaska grew way beyond where we originally had planned to go with it. It was supposed to be a single movie, Last Frontier, and then 2 episodes of Beyond the Trail. And it grew into 2 movies, multiple episodes of Beyond the Trail at this point, and then an entire miniseries Alexander is doing called Dark Coast. So, it's a weird, mysterious, very intimidating, epic location. It's everything you think of Alaska. It's all that and a lot more. It's really intimidating once you're there. The scale of it is such that I just got back from Switzerland. I went to Switzerland with my dad and my sister 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
So I just got back, and I can tell you, even going to Switzerland and staying in Grindelwald at the base of the Eiger, going up to Jungfrau, like all that stuff, it all pales in comparison to Alaska.
Wow.
I'm sure there's other places just as epic around the globe, but I know for a fact that Alaska spoiled me for like every other place I'll ever go. It's just, it's the isolation, the scale of it is, it's hard to describe. You have to kind of like see it with your own eyes.
Yeah.
Even capturing it on film, the closest we came to capturing just how isolated you are in Alaska came during the helicopter flight that we took. We took this helicopter flight. They allowed us to take the doors off, so we had the doors off the helicopter, and you're hanging out over just an endless mountain range that goes off to the horizon. And then the pilot was kind enough to land on top of a mountain in Denali. So we land on a mountain in Denali National Park, and we got out and you could see Denali 20 miles away or whatever. And you're just looking at this sea of mountains, And then somewhere off to the left, it's a sea of pine forest. And yeah, you won't compete with that.
No.
Not that I'm not, I don't think I ever will compete with that, just because Alaska to me as a kid was like, that is the romantic view of the world for a young boy, especially. I mean, that's my experience with being a young boy.
Right.
And so like the wilderness and all that stuff, when you think of that, like untamed wilderness, that is Alaska. And having been there, that is still my ideal untamed wilderness. Like you're not, I've been all over the country. At this point, I've been to Israel, I've been to Switzerland, like I've been around the world.
Wow.
I don't know that I will ever compare to visiting Alaska. And I'm really proud of the stuff we've done there with STM.
You should be. It's fantastic. You definitely should be.
Awesome. Thank you. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it also, by the way, is why I don't think we'll ever solve the Bigfoot subject there. It is a massive untamed wilderness, and these things have all the land they need to sort of like stay hidden there.
Yeah.
It's very, very different from Ohio.
Right. Oh yeah. I understand. I totally understand. It's I can't imagine. It's on my bucket list.
Right.
Please. I seriously, I beg you. My dad is turning 80 in a couple of years, and I went to Switzerland with him this year, and so my goal for 2024 is to get him and my 6-year-old son and somehow take them to see Alaska before it gets to the point where my dad can't see it, because
Right.
it legitimately will change your view of everything. It's there's one road in particular that I always think of, going from like Anchorage to Denali. You're on the Denali highway, and you come into this valley that stretches on for miles. I mean, miles and miles. I don't even know how far, but you're in the middle of this valley, and surrounding you in a perfect 360 is this ring of mountains. I mean, it looks like you're in Lord of the Rings. And there's some shots from that valley in Land of the Missing and Last Frontier. But I think about it all the time. Just because it was, it's like, it's one of those things where you're a speck in the grand scheme of everything. We are a speck on this huge planet that we inhabit, and that will put you in a very humble position. So I recommend everybody, if you have the opportunity, go to Alaska.
Yeah, for sure. I heard, and we've had Alex on the show before, and I think it might have been him telling us that a lot of you guys, when you guys got to Alaska, you guys got sick.
Yeah, our entire crew, my group got sick. There were five of us in my crew, and as soon as we reached our first stop in Homer, all of us felt off, and it lasted about 4 days until we got out of Homer. It wasn't to the point that we couldn't work. We worked through it, but if we weren't working, we were laying down. There was about 4 days. A lot of that could be jet lag. I mean, it's like a 4-hour, 4-hour time difference for us. And then also we were working. So it was, and it was intimidating. You're in Alaska. So you're like, everywhere you go, people tell you, well, this can kill you and this can kill you. So you're always like, well, am I going to bump into a grizzly bear today? Maybe. So.
Right. I hear you. Well,
I hope not. It's like, I hope not.
Yeah.
No. And plus too, I would think with the elevation, you could have had maybe some elevation.
Yeah.
Well, that was the odd part about it. I get altitude sickness very easily. And we were down in Homer though. So we're at sea level. Gotcha. So it shouldn't have been elevation. So we're still kind of unclear on what was causing it.
Yeah. Who knows though? But I'm glad you all are good, and you guys got those shows out, because, like I said, they're top notch.
Awesome.
For sure.
Now, have you ever thought at Small Town Monsters to maybe take this overseas to a different country and start investigating over there?
Yeah, we've wanted to do like a Loch Ness movie or a Beast of Jevedon or something like that. Even when I was in Switzerland, I was hearing stories about like rock throwing demons and things. Like I'd love to do it. Your problem is always going to be budget.
Yeah.
We work on a very low budget. Believe it or not, we are not a $1 million media conglomerate. And so our ultimate problem is just managing the budget to fly everyone to another country is a problem. But at some point, it's something we'd love to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would too.
For sure. You guys have another conference coming up next year, correct?
Yeah, Monster Fest 2 happening June 28th and 29th.
Awesome.
Of next year in Canton, Ohio. We're still kind of nailing down all the logistics, but we have a growing guest list, and we've been announcing. If you're following us on like Instagram or Facebook, we're announcing stuff almost weekly about it. So
awesome. Brandy and I are on your wait list because I know your vendor spots are all taken.
They are right now.
Yeah, we talked to Heather and we're on your wait list.
We're trying.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Courtney, get Blondes and Booze into Monster Fest somehow.
Please.
Move them to the top of the wait list.
There you go. Please.
We'll do it.
Yeah, we enjoy the conferences and meeting people. We've met some great people, and it's been a great ride. So we want to continue doing this, and we like doing these shows and trying to educate ourselves and others.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, Josh, thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much.
Josh. Thank you so much.
Definitely appreciate that, Josh.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
So anyway. We're at the hour and 38-minute mark, and this went fast.
I know, it just kind of like flew by. I'm just sitting here listening and listening.
Right. You are a wealth of information, Seth, and I've enjoyed this thoroughly.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
ladies. I'm sorry, guys.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. We in the future, we'd love to have you back if you'd be
absolutely.
Anytime.
Yeah, I because I would love to have you back after you've gone to the LBL and you've heard all the stories. Oh, am I froze? Am I okay now?
You're good.
No, okay. You're back.
Because I would love to hear about what you found out at the LBL and all that stuff. I mean,
absolutely.
Because every time different friends of ours go and they spend some time out there, they've always got a story. There's always a story that something happened. So I'd be interested to find out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be in touch. And once again, we appreciate it. And if you would, stick around for just a minute backstage.
Okay. Yeah.
We'd appreciate it. And thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in tonight. We definitely appreciate each and every one of you. Tomorrow night, you guys are just stuck with Brandy and I. We'll come up with something to talk about for sure.
I'm sure.
So, we always do. We always do. So, but we thank each and every one of you, and thank you to Josh Turner for that donation. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
Yes, for sure. And if you guys stick around for tomorrow night, and we'll see you then.
See you tomorrow night.
Good night.